Hallo und willkommen zu einer neuen Folge des Tech und Community Podcasts. In der heutigen Folge gibt es eine ganz besondere Sache, nämlich es ist eine Panel-Diskussion. Ich habe insgesamt 3 MVPs zu Gast im Podcast und meine Gäste sind zu einem Nicolas aus Südafrika, dann habe ich noch Sigi Jagott aus Deutschland und den lieben Dave Stork aus den Niederlanden. And now I'm going to switch over to English. And I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself real quick. And let's start with Nicolas.
Hello, my name is Nicolas Blank, and I am a dual M365 as well as Azure MVP for my sins, living in Cape Town. I've been an MVP for about 18 years now, which means just like everybody else on this podcast, I'm really old because I know what things like Active Directory is and what to do with it, and how Exchange was the killer application for Active Directory back in the year 2000, and why PowerShell made you more attractive to the sex that you wanted to be attractive to. But those days are past. So I'm going to hand back over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. Sigi, it's up to you.
Hi, I'm Sigi. I'm based in Nuremberg, Germany. I think I started with the Exchange 4.0 alpha version back in 1995, which makes me probably almost 30 years in Exchange, which is really scary if I look back. I started with like the Windows 95 mail, so Postmaster or Postfix, whatever integration it was, and that got me interested. And when Exchange Server was released, that was one of my first things that I really liked to work in. Yeah, and of course, like Nicolas, Active Directory brought us different opportunities, and Exchange developed certain technologies like PowerShell, like instant messaging, like others. Yeah, and that's from my background. Basically, I'm now 12 years Exchange MVP. Yeah, and I ever since work in the area of Exchange and M365. I run a company called Intelity in Germany, and we do consulting in that area as well. Yeah, and it's always amazing to look back how everything developed and how we got to know each other, Nicolas, Dave, or Thomas. Amazing. Yes. We know each other for more than 10 years. Yeah. Time flies. Back to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Sigi. Dave.
Yes, Dave Stork from the Netherlands in Haarlem, next to Amsterdam. I've been working in IT for more than 20 years, and with Exchange, I started with Exchange 2000, although I already had some dealings with 5.5. And worked my up from there, first as just a sysadmin and now a cloud architect. Currently also MVP in the Microsoft 365 apps and services category with a little notation Exchange as well. So that's very important. 11 years MVP right now. Currently still working with a lot of mail systems on-prem, cloud, and have to deal with all the changes and impact on security and stuff like that. Currently working at the company Simplify Now as a consultant at various organizations per contract. So that's me.
Thank you, Dave. So, with this being an Exchange Server panel, so I need to ask the obvious. What were your thoughts when you read the Exchange Server roadmap announcement back in the day? Any of you who like?
Just shout, Thomas, or should we?
Absolutely, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing, remember the announcement wasn't new. Yeah, it was back at, I think it was Ignite 2021, so 3 years ago, when Greg Taylor announced the next version of Exchange. But then, of course, something happened that caused the roadmap to slip. And ever since, I was expecting some news on that. And of course, this was released in May this year. Yeah, I think and which is good to give my customers clarification about the continuity of the server product. Yeah, before sometimes it was discussed that it's going to be discontinued, but now they are clear on what's next, and that's of course definitely a good thing to happen for Microsoft. Or Nicolas,
I'll add to that. I think we were all a little bit surprised with the announcement of how little there is in the box. And when we heard, is that it? And we understand there's a minor build upgrade. Effectively, it's the same as CU15, code compatible, so to speak. And we get a couple of minor tweaks. We get a certificate GUI back for administrators, which, yawn, and a couple of other bits and features. From a TLS point of view, a little bit of Kerberos goodness. But otherwise, I think the disappointment is also a very clear signal that Exchange on-premises at best is only in maintenance mode. And I don't think we're going to expect much goodness, so to speak, or maybe even features and whiz-bang things coming from anything and an on-premises product anymore. I don't know how you feel, if you think maybe differently. Dave, what do you think?
Well, first off, the announcement was kind of sort of a relief. Just like Sigi said, it gave clarity, especially because we already knew that in October 2025, any versions 2016 and 2019 would lose their extended support. So that would have had consequences for organizations. And then the second step is, okay, I've got a server farm and I need to migrate them to a new version. That always takes time. Now we know it's an in-place upgrade. And with about a year preparation, I think that is, they should have done it earlier, but this is still, with all the context without it, it's still okay. To coming back to you about it sounds like this is a maintenance Exchange servers in maintenance mode, as it were. I kind of see that as well. There are some little things on security side and management side, but the real exciting stuff is obviously happening in the cloud. But also, that is not really a surprise to me, because Microsoft already has said that go to the cloud basically for all the nice and new stuff. It's basically also what I say to my customers. If you want to have certain capabilities, then the cloud is the way to go, and on-prem is only for very specific scenarios. And I think that this announcement and version, the subscription version, also that is a subscription service and not a 2021 or 2024 or 2025 server version, also speaks to that it's you really have to think about your on-prem Exchange server environment the coming year and the years after that, and what your plans are with that. Do you go to the cloud, or perhaps do you go to another vendor for your mail or groupware solution?
Who is another vendor? Let me just ask you guys that. And from me to you, the question back would be, where else would you go besides Exchange Online?
For enterprise organizations, I'm probably biased as I'm working with Exchange Server, but I don't see any valid alternatives that will be implemented with enterprise organizations. You still got novel group-wise and Lotus Notes, perhaps Lotus Domino. I don't know how that's called currently, but I think that what might happen for a lot of smaller organizations is that they still have an on-prem presence, that they will migrate to the cloud, and perhaps not Microsoft, but Google Workspace or G Suite or whatever it's called now. That might be the case, but for larger enterprise organizations, I think that, and they still have to have an on-prem for whatever reasons, then I think that they will stay with the Exchange server. Yeah.
Why shouldn't they stay? It's a proven product. Yeah, and I think, Nicolas, I agree with you. The SE release doesn't show that many features. The new features will probably come over time. The SP1 with SP1 on the SE. But secondly, I think the importance is here that Microsoft will change to the subscription mode or edition is really so they see how much money is in, correct? They need to maintain a version of Exchange Server. And if there is sufficient support, I guess they will continue develop the most important features that these customers request. And in the past with 2016, and remember the biggest thing that most of my customers are still on 2016 is that they have a server CAL and a client CAL. So they just paid once and they don't run it into a subscription mode where they have to pay on a monthly base for the service. And I think that's a fair situation from Microsoft perspective to change to a subscription edition and make customers pay if you have a valid reason to stay on premises. And my customers, for example, are like in high security areas. They probably will never migrate to the cloud. So a cloud is not an option. The only option would be another on premises. But Dave, I think Lotus Notes is not an option. Or so for 20 years we migrate Lotus Notes environments to Exchange. I never had vice versa. And to be honest, everybody tries to get off of Lotus Notes for years, and it's so expensive. And if you have some valid reason to stay on Exchange Server, the good thing is, I think Microsoft makes it easy for you to stay up to date with security and with updates. Nicolas, that used to be the nightmare in the past. We earned a ton of money by advising our customers how to move from the old to the new version. I think that goes away with the SE.
Yeah,
and I like the term maintenance mode. So maybe not maintenance mode, but it's stayed up to date. So security will get security patches and maybe new features.
So maybe it should have called. They should have named it as server subscription edition, but maintenance edition.
Yes, ME, and we all know how good ME products are.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
But that was 1998, or?
Yes.
Windows ME, or? Remember
that's
that?
Right. That's right.
Yeah,
but to go back to those new features in subscription edition, or lack of new features, I think what we just mentioned, so type of organization that will stay on-prem, high security. I think that that part is a lot more important than new features or
correct
feature parity with the online version. So, and I think that is probably one of the things that Microsoft thinks. Okay, you probably don't want a nice, fancy AI Copilot powered stuff. So here's the timid version of Exchange, as it were. And I think that there still is market for that.
So I need to cut in because you mentioned Copilot. For the very first time in this podcast. No worries. But I just want to catch up on the maintenance thingy. Do we expect that the upcoming SE edition, especially from an ECP perspective, and that it will fix some of the issues with the ECP, so that some of the UI things still only work properly if you use Internet Explorer on a modern server version, and that they do not work properly with Edge? So as an example, if you want to manage the remote address spaces of a receive connector as a simple example, do we hope that this is being fixed?
I think hope is a lovely... Hope is not a strategy, right? And the reason why I say that is because it hasn't been put into the tech community blog post. And there's some detail in there if we look at, we're proud about doing the things from a TLS point of view, and we're moving away from PowerShell, remote PowerShell to a REST-based API. They're not talking about an adult browser on Windows Server. That wasn't in there anyway. So I'm not holding my breath just because it's not in the announcement.
Also remember they moved the support towards Windows Server 2025, and there's no Edge. Well, there is Edge, but no Internet Explorer in there. I guess that's some of the areas they need to consider, at least for a future service pack, Thomas.
Or they will just say use PowerShell to configure those kind of.
So remove it from the shell, Dave. That's very common in the past. Or
use whatever, but use something else on the browser. So nice thing. So, Sigi mentioned the use or the still operating of Exchange servers on premises, especially in highly secured environments. I just want to ask in general, so do you still see a lot of pure on-premises server organizations? And if so, are they running virtualized or on physical servers? So what is your current experience?
So let me start. So both happens. So basically, I think the majority is really on. The ones that are larger run physical. The ones that are not so large, and when not talking about not so large means somewhere between 1,000 to 5,000, probably are virtualized. Yeah. So that's what I see with my customers. Well, do we have a lot? Yeah, a few. But a few are demanding. Yeah. What about you guys?
I personally don't have any. Well, I did have customers that have on premises, and that's the highly secure environments that will never go into the cloud. Correct. Or at least not in the foreseeable future. So they will be running the server subscription edition for those environments, and whether but those are limited. A lot of organizations in the Netherlands are very cloud-minded, especially also Microsoft 365 minded. So there's little discussion about that. So cloud is a given. It's more you have to have a specific reason not to go to the cloud. There's still discussion here and there about especially about confidentiality and how does Microsoft protect its assets and our assets of customers and stuff like that. So it kind of depends on the type of organization and what kind of data they have. And as to virtual or physical, also the Netherlands has a big preference to virtualize almost everything. So 9 out of 10 it will be virtualized. The other side is that there are not that many 5,000 plus organizations that I have to deal with, but I suspect that when you go into that kind of numbers, that even in the Netherlands, that a lot of organizations just do physical Exchange or are migrated to Exchange Online. That's also a possibility. So it will be interesting to see how that divide is going to work with subscription edition or the last few years. I think the most organizations, even if they are big and they don't have any limitations, they will go to the cloud and just skip this whole discussion. But for those that don't, probably virtualized. Most of them are smaller. Yeah.
Most of my customers are virtualized, and that includes Active Directory. However, irrespective of how large or small they are, especially if they've got a virtualization investment, we would tell them that they should have a pizza box, a 1U, something small on the side that runs a physical domain controller, because everything can fail, including the virtualization layer, which can fail outright. or you could have a SAN failure and you could lose something that causes you to lose all of virtualization. And I've seen this happen several times through large customers with significant data center investment, that they have a single or even a double data center failure. And the thing that saves them was the fact that there was a pizza box sitting in the corner, and that things, including the virtualization layer that was Active Directory integrated, could still authenticate.
Very true, Nicolas. Very true. Dave, to you, what about just a thought? You always mention organizations. I think the most the most customers that are on-prem are either military or governmental, because of the big problem that there is no M365 governmental cloud available in Europe. At least here. So for example, the military people, they cannot go to the cloud. No way.
Correct.
But then coming back to your argumentation, hey, they just need email. They don't need fancy stuff or anything. They just need a fully functional email system that is fully isolated in their environment. Yeah. Just wanted to add to your discussion about.
Yeah.
But with organizations, I'm totally with you. I think everybody below, let's say 100, there's no reason to stay on a server. There's really no reason.
Yeah. And those that was I was thinking of defense, NATO organizations,
correct,
International
NATO.
Criminal Court. Those kinds of organizations with high valued information, and sometimes they classify everything and just separate everything. And those are the organizations. So I didn't mean any privately owned organization or anything. Most governments or government institution or defense, those are probably the organizations that will remain on-prem as which they consider as a important feature. So for them, in this is an important part. But I found that remark you made about the government Microsoft 365 because the US does have a government tenant. I would be interested to see what would happen here in Europe when Microsoft ever decides to do that. I'm not sure if it will ever happen. And if European countries will accept it, but yeah,
we used to have a German cloud. Remember, Dave and Thomas?
Yes,
Thomas can talk. Can sing a song, or how we say in German around it.
Put it that way.
Because of feature lag and too expensive and those kind of stuff.
Right. So it was highly demanded, and when we got it, oh damn, it's more expensive than the global one. So we stay in the global one.
Nicolas, what about South Africa? Is your government in the cloud?
Absolutely. We've got government departments. We migrated Parliament, the South African Parliament, into off Lotus Notes onto Exchange, and going to cloud was a thing, right? And then but that's also because our government had monopolies around providing services back to their own government departments. And we've got an agency called SETA, which is a State Information Technology Agency, which were prescriptive about you have to use their network and their services. However, being non-competitive, if I could be kind to call them that, they were not able to really offer value to their customers. And as soon as one government department and one province moved, everybody else did, because under Roman Dutch law, we needed precedence. And once there was one precedence, there was an avalanche of customers moving over. And I find that there's a deep irony for me, because you talk about government and needing to be on premises, and I've done government work in secure environments, and I find that there's a deep irony if we consider that our government customers want to stay on premises because it's quote unquote more secure, but it's 2024. So, if we add the beta years to it, Active Directory is a 25-year-old attack platform. 25 years. And it takes a teenager with a YouTube account and a free GitHub subscription 15 minutes to learn how to create a silver or a gold ticket using Mimikatz. And so if we all need just Ethernet access or Wi-Fi access, sometimes up to 2 kilometers away Wi-Fi access, I don't understand how Active Directory on premises and therefore Exchange on premises is meant to give us any kind of a semblance of security.
That's an interesting point of view, Nicolas. I'm totally with you that Active Directory is quite old. I totally agree with the security perspective that you are adding. However, I think one of the key thoughts is to have control over your own environment without giving it to anybody abroad. So let's just quickly assume all internet connections between Europe and the US are broken for some reason, and there is no alternative. Just one thing. Then everything would stop working. And remember, the war in the Ukraine even enhanced this concern. Yeah, to be isolated, to be able to run isolated. Yeah, to still work even if there's a problem with the communication. I think that's the key reason to stay on premises currently, as far as I see it. Yeah, to keep your data on your own servers and on your own admin's hands. Is it secure? I'm with you. Yeah, I totally agree. It's probably not as secure as the cloud, but it's more like the independence from Americans, maybe, yeah, from infrastructure problems, yeah, because you have your own infrastructure and those kind of things. Or Dave, what do you think?
Before you go, I just want to add something to that. So we remember we had a global outage because of Azure Active Directory and that one data center in Texas that failed because of whatever reason, right? But since then, we also know that there have been significant investments in Azure Active Directory, or now Entra ID, so that there is no longer a single point of failure. And with that, if we lose all the fiber between Europe and America, we know that Azure Active Directory or Entra ID is also multi-master enough and distributed enough that authentication will still work, right? And so bear in mind that in South Africa, we had such an outage a little while ago, and the engineering group responded and very quickly and very publicly made the announcements around how Africa will no longer suffer from a cable break to the rest of the world, and we will have parity with Europe. So I hear you from a availability point of view that it might happen, but I also know, and this is very publicly documented, that we had an Exchange Online failure, which was because a cable break happened in the Nordics. And 70 racks of Exchange servers failed over transparently within Exchange Online to another region. And customers did not know there was an outage. So the distributed nature of both the Entra ID capacity as well as Exchange Online capacity, etc., is actually staggering. And America not existing any longer, so to speak, in the event of a war, would not be the one thing that would cause Office 365 to crash anymore. And so I hear you from an availability concern. However, I understand that the argument is much more about wanting to and needing to have control within your own geography, within your own nationality. I have to ask you, though, as one responsible adult to another, understanding what we know and how the things that are are built under the hood in terms of Exchange substrate and Entra ID. Is that argument really valid that we must stay on premises for availability and control?
That would not be my argument. In the contrary, is especially one part, and that's basically also harkening on how, whether you stay on the cloud or go to the server subscription edition, is how mature is your organization. Can you and it's same for cloud, but for your own on-premises system, you need to have data center engineers, the whole on-prem knowledge. And with the cloud, you still have to have knowledge, and especially on the security. I mean, you cannot use the default settings in Microsoft 365. So you have to have expertise on what you have to do, but it's a different kind of expertise, and compared to on-prem. And so I think that one side of the discussion of that is, and especially for subscription edition, is also something organizations have to ask themselves: is how mature are we? Can we handle an on-prem system? Or and maybe I'm making a segue to another part, is if you're still having directory synchronization and all your mailboxes are already in the cloud, and you still have one Exchange server for mail relay or object maintenance, will you go to server subscription edition, or will you cut the cord on management? And that's actually the discussion I have with one of my customers. Is I want to get rid of the last Exchange server, so no on-prem Exchange server, no mailbox server. Mail relaying is the responsibility of the application owners, and we provide options and stuff like that. But no Exchange server to manage stuff. But then you have to look at the maturity of your organization, because if you do that, then you have to take into account the directory synchronization, and you have to provision objects via PowerShell, because that is then the only way to do that. So I'm going a little bit of a different path answering this question, but I think a lot of, especially, I don't know, I'm not sure how that is in other parts of the world, but there are not enough technical engineers in the Netherlands to do all the support work you have to do if you want to have a mature and on-prem organization on the infrastructure side. And that's something that the cloud sort of resolves for you, or alleviates you, so you can focus more on other stuff like security, compliance, and stuff like that. So that is actually my focus on this part of the discussion, not necessarily if you have the option to go to the cloud, because that, like we said, just defense and stuff, that's the non-discussion. But for availability, well, it's a risk that you take or have with going to the cloud, but you have other risk with on-premises. So it's a total cost of operations risk benefit discussion we have to have, and part of that is what Sigi mentioned, but also there are a lot of other factors that come into play.
Dave, I totally agree with you. That's probably, Nicolas, also something that's missing with SE, is a path away from on-premises, correct? And we all agree on that, or it's not so described, it's not so easy to get rid of all the servers. You still need a management server or management tools, or you run a hybrid server. Yeah, that, by the way, Microsoft also announced that the SE edition is free, which is good. Yeah, definitely. With 2019, I remember the first releases weren't that obviously free. Yeah, so I think that adds to the discussion. Yeah, to be honest, I don't see a full get rid of Exchange on premises right now, because the implications of Active Directory. And it's an Active Directory problem, not an Exchange problem. So we can remove the server if you don't require mail routing, but do you really want to manage your objects in Active Directory using ADSI or something like this, which is not a good, and you lose RBAC, like role-based access control, and you lose auditing and all these sorts of things that make me, okay, I think the valid reason will be to stay with one server until Microsoft has a fix for this problem.
Yeah, well, I agree. It kind of depends on the also again on this part on maturity of the technical maturity of the organization. If they can handle PowerShell or limited PowerShell or have an automation pipeline that can do all the provisioning stuff, so that you don't actually need a Exchange server to manage your stuff, then it's a valid way to just dump all the last Exchange server. But if you're not in that kind of position, or you have you don't have a certainty that you have an Exchange admin or whatever reasons, most admins know a little bit their way around PowerShell, Exchange PowerShell, and stuff like that, but with a mailbox server in your organization. So I think until there's a better solution than there is currently, I think a lot of organizations will still have that one Exchange server present, even though it's only for relaying, for instance.
I'm really happy that you already brought up the last Exchange server discussion, because that was something that I spared out for the end, because it's a pretty interesting topic. But I do want to get to the SE, to Exchange server SE, especially because focusing on the recommendation to upgrade now to Exchange server 2019 to do the fancy in-place upgrade. But there was a lot of fuss about that recommendation because of the associated license cost, for example, for quote-unquote upgrading or having a license cost for Exchange server 2019 for just 1 year. Is this still something you would personally recommend to your clients, or would you recommend, okay, stay on 2016 and then as soon as SE is available, just do a proper new setup and do a swing migration by moving mailboxes? So as we did in the past when we had major releases of Exchange.
Well, in Microsoft defense, they publicly stated go to 2019 for years now. And with the announcement of subscription edition, it became clear why they were so hell-bent on making that message come across, to go to 2019. Do you have 2016? Do you have mailboxes? Go to 2019. So that is a little bit of a defense for Microsoft side, that they were already preparing the customers for that in-place upgrade and 2019. But for the other part of your question, my focus is getting at least for the organizations that I'm responsible now, is going to the cloud, and where especially in my situation, the organizations that cannot go to the cloud, costs are less of an issue in those situations, because the security is more is the deciding factor. So I don't see that conflict in my customer. That your experiences could be different, but that was just my 2 cents on this topic.
I can add to that, Dave. Well, the thing, Exchange 20, I have quite some customers on 2016 still. And the official recommendation is more or less move to CU14 as soon as possible, and then do the upgrade to CU15, and then you can go to SE anytime you want to. The interesting fact is, I think it's also the discussion around Windows Server. Yeah, because if you're on 2016, you're probably on Windows Server 2016 as well. And by then, well, you should, or you need to consider when you move over to, for example, Windows Server 2025, because that will be supported with 2019 CU15. So that probably will be the last move of operating system for you for years, which is the perfect situation, of course. At least 5 years you can stay on Windows Server 2025. So if you move anytime from here to next year, to CU14 and then plan the upgrade to CU15, gives you time where you don't need much maintenance. Yeah, of course you need to update, and the key thing is management. Even Exchange server management tools, you need to upgrade them for security reasons. Yeah, so you need to manage those servers. Yeah, and I'm with you. Yeah, it's so I see the money discussion is more like, okay, if it's a money discussion, then move to the cloud or not. Yeah. I see more it's a technical or network discussion where it's an isolated network and the users cannot move to the cloud because they are not internet connected. And then, of course, you have 1 year left and you should upgrade sometimes in between the next year. Yeah, because Q3 2025 is when SE will be released, and that will turn up at some point. And depending on the size of your environment, I guess you should at least plan ahead. Correct, Nicolas?
I like that you said money, because money decides things, right? And I just want to throw an interesting story in that I read last week, which was that there's a Windows XP customer, military customer, who's paying Microsoft a fortune to stay on Windows XP and to keep on supporting them. But that's not the normal customer. And I think the normal customer doesn't want to spend money. We had a retail customer with 1,100 domain controllers that recently upgraded from Server 2008 to Windows Server 2022. And they had all kinds of technical debt because they didn't want to spend money. And on-premises organizations don't want to spend money. They like 3-year cycles and they like 5-year cycles because it's super predictable. They need things to work and they need spending to be predictable. So now comes subscription edition. And if you've run SharePoint subscription edition for a while, then you understand that you had to spend money because all of your licenses are now invalid. And now with Exchange SE, all your previous licenses from Exchange 2019 are also invalid to go forward ad infinitum, right? So you need SE licenses. Your 16 licenses are no good. Your 13 licenses are no good. And what you could get away with on premises with old CALs and I'll worry about it one day when Microsoft audits me, that world is gone. Because if you don't pay for your SE licenses, they stop working, right? Because now it's a subscription model. So I think the money lens and the money argument is a really interesting one because understanding that customers don't want to spend money, except customers who are highly secure and they need to spend money, that don't have choices around the things that they need to do to stay supported. But they've got, and I would be surprised if we didn't have organizations with very high security ratings that would very happily give Microsoft a big pot of money to keep them supported on whatever they currently happen to be on, like our Windows XP customers.
Totally agreed. In the favor of time, I just want to come to a question from Matthias from Germany, because he asked about the Exchange Server SE licensing. And I must admit that the term subscription edition misled me in the very beginning, because we, at this point, so there's something that we had some clarification on internally from the PG and from the product group. Sorry for using some of those fancy abbreviations here. The thing that the SE now provides you with two options. So either you do have software assurance in place, which already provides you with an option. So if you are using software assurance, you can use the most recent version for Exchange. For example, that brings you the option to use Exchange or activate Exchange Server 2019. Or you use the cloud option, which comes with a different subscription thingy around the corner, which brings, as long as you use the proper cloud licenses, gives you the license right to use or to license on-premises productivity server products, and Exchange Server is one of these. So I think this is that we need to clarify here that it's not necessarily a monthly cost, but at least you have to get at least to software assurance.
Correct. And Thomas, don't forget, a question that I got asked quite often is, so does Microsoft check the amount of CALs or clients that I'm using on a monthly basis? But which is not the case. Yeah, the SE is not connected to any kind of license server.
Right.
And will not check the users that you use, but it's more like a subscription and support.
Yeah, right. Because how was it originally phrased in the communication internally? So the use case, so one of the mostly used use cases for Exchange Server is that Exchange Server runs in a environment or a network segment which is not directly connected or allowing outbound connection to the internet. So even the Exchange Server SE will check the license key you enter from a logical perspective, but it won't check to an online source of Microsoft, because the overall idea is that as long as you enter a valid license key, Exchange Server shows as license, and you should well take care of a proper license, in the very moment that license audit knocks on your door.
Correct.
Another question was from Matthew from South Africa. And he asked if hybrid modern auth will be enabled out of the box so that he can put conditional access in front of Exchange Server. Well, I'd say no, we do not know any details on which kind of features will be enabled in SE, right?
I would agree with that. Bear in mind that SE is basically CU15, and we may get something, but I don't expect it to be enabled by default, because it makes too many assumptions for our customers' environments who, again, want to stay on premises for one reason or another. I don't know how my friends feel about that.
Just to clarify the question, Thomas, is he talking about hybrid modern authentication? Because HMA is available already. Or
it's available, but it's not on by default.
Right. So the real question was if it's enabled by default. So not if it's available, but if it's enabled by default. So, and I doubt that it will be enabled by default because it requires additional configuration.
Yeah. It requires the hybrid configuration wizard to run and to be connected to the Office 365 or M365 environment. So I would say I don't think so. Totally agree to Nicolas. It's too complex and too failure-driven, I think, to enable something like this by default. And why should you? It's also, when you're on premises, you have a reason to be on premise, correct? And as I said, as I pointed out, one of the biggest reasons I see is a not internet-connected environment. And then you don't have modern authentication.
Yeah, and so you probably also won't have clients with Outlook in the perimeter or via the internet that want to connect to your on-premises Exchange Server and then via HMA authenticate. No, that's something I would rather have as a conscious choice with some additional configuration. Yeah.
Do you guys have HMA enabled with some of your customers, or ever did that?
No. Basically, all my customers are either fully on-prem, or fully cloud, or semi-cloud with some mailboxes, non-user mailboxes still on-prem for line of business applications and stuff like that. But it's kind of all in for cloud in most cases. So no need for HMA.
So I do have a.
So I only did it once.
I do have one customer who use hybrid and modern auth because they remain in a full classic hybrid environment for the foreseeable future. They are just a selected set of mailboxes which, for whatever reason, won't be migrated and moved to Exchange Online. So as a wrap-up, so what's your personal recommendation for our listeners for preparing for October 14th, 2025 and the end of support for Exchange Server 2016 and 2019?
Well, I think one question you have to ask yourself is, do I need to stay on-prem or do I need to do cloud? And if the answer is I need to stay on-prem, then you have to investigate your steps for subscription edition, because that is then the way to go. But I think that is the first question you have to answer yourself. And if you already answer that, then you have to plan for your transition to the subscription edition, and those plans already laid out, so you can already do some work currently. And I would start rather sooner than later, depending on your position. But for instance, one of my customers still had on-premises mailboxes. There was always the intent of having them in the cloud. So I just said, okay, I'm guessing X months preparation time, migration time, testing, etc., etc. So before January 1st, 2025, for instance, you need to have an answer for me whether your mailboxes will remain on-prem or are able to. There was some blockers. So remove those blockers and then before that deadline I gave you, and then go ahead. So that is the other thing. Just look into your environment, whether you can get rid of all your on-prem mailboxes, so your migration will be a lot smoother, because you don't have to have that redundancy and stuff like that on-prem, which makes your migration a lot complicated. If it's only for mail relay and for object maintenance or management, then it's really relatively simple without any downtime or disruptions, or at least not major disruptions. So those are the things that come to mind.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. What I would like to add is you have to upgrade anyway. Yeah, because there's nowhere you should not stay or think about staying on Exchange 2016 beyond the expiration of the support. Upgrade.
But there still are servers older than that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. But the key thing is, as you mentioned, if you have or stay on premises, plan early. Yeah, if you do not want or plan to stay on premises with your mailboxes, move them, reduce your environment, and still go ahead and install Exchange 2019 CU14. Yeah, or 15 when it's available. Yeah, because that will put you in a maintenance mode where you don't need to take care of your Windows or Exchange anymore in the future. Yeah, and for management tools / hybrid server, it's anyway for free. You don't need a subscription license. Yeah, of course, if you have mailboxes, you need to consider the money implications, as Nicolas put it. Correct, Nicolas?
Indeed, and remember that there will be a blocker. Remember, there will be a block. So if we find something that's too old in the organization, SE will refuse to install. And so both Dave and Sigi made really good points about planning that's required, or it will just refuse to even finish the wizard.
And then you're stressing because you have a deadline to make.
Well, Nicolas, that's going to be SECU1 that will restrict any upgrades. So you need to run 15 and in order to get to SE, and that the next version won't have any upgrade possibilities anymore. So Service Pack 1, as mentioned in the blog, is that cutting thing. Yeah, great that you mentioned this, Nicolas.
Not a lot of time, Sigi, for an enterprise organization that wants to stay on premises and is coming from a long tail of even Exchange 2013 or 16. That's not a lot of time.
No. Most migrations, for smaller organizations, I've had a lead time of 3 months, and it was running really hard, really fast. And depending on your organization, that just 6 months. I wouldn't be surprised if you had to take 6 months if you have a lower version of Exchange and have to upgrade it to 2019. Especially if you currently have 2013, and then you need to migrate.
Yeah.
Well, remember, for 2013, you need side-by-side hardware, because you can't do an in-place org upgrade, so to speak, on with especially if you've got large DAGs, you've got namespaces to consider, you've got a lot of work to do. So you also need to order the hardware, do the planning, do the change management, etc., etc. Consider the firewall
even if
implications.
and even if you're fully virtual, you still have to size that for your organization. That's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in the Netherlands. That they size their virtual environment, their SAN, for a Exchange organization. Yes, now you have to do a migration. Yeah, you for a little while you have to have two organizations of that size.
That's right. Yes.
So that's going to be painful for some organizations. So be mindful of that, and that takes a lot of planning and calculating and stuff like that. Yeah,
Absolutely correct.
Nicolas, Sigi, and Dave, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure having so much Exchange expertise in this episode, and I hope it brought some idea to our listeners how to move forward to Exchange Server SE. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you're
Thomas.
welcome. It was nice to have us in your podcast.
Yeah.